If you shop on
Alright, everybody,
Amazon,
we should be live for this week's episode of the Safely Extreme podcast, where we discuss game design and game dev topics. This is for the week of September 27, 2020. We are officially going into fall now, though it still doesn't feel like it around here. I'm, of course, Josh Blazer. You can follow me on Twitter at GWBlazer. And my co-host, of course, is indie developer Shark.
Hello, I'm Sharky, and you can follow me on Discord. Link will be down in the description, and you can also follow me on Twitter, which link's also down in the description, but it's Nexus Games INC1. And we are truly falling in this fall. Falling all over ourselves.
It is summer fall, I guess, around here, because you remember last year, fall was when I got my horrible sunburn.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what fall is like now.
No, you didn't get sunburned. You were just cosplaying as a cherry tomato.
Which unfortunately doesn't help when you're trying to sell a book on game dev.
I mean, it does if that book on game dev involves cherry tomatoes.
And for this week, of course, we have news and topics. We're starting earlier, I guess you could say. We made it before, 6 o'clock, what we did last week. But we're still getting used to setting Shark up for his YouTube stream. Because you can see we have joint chats now at the bottom of the screen.
Yep, and you guys can come and watch on my channel and his channel. You can watch on both of our channels at the same time, although I would suggest you mute one. Hopefully the audio and everything works out on mine. I hope everybody can hear Josh on my channel.
And we finally fixed Shark's problem with him being, barely above a whisper.
Which was a ironic new computer problem.
But let's get to some of our topics or things that's been going on. I've officially turned in my third manuscript. It's done. I'm not changing anything else until, they send me the final copy to review. And the journey now begins to find an image and, pick the front and backsplash of it.
Yeah, you could just use the thumbnail I created in my video today. You could use that.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. That will explain roguelike design to everybody.
Exactly.
The headset journey continues as the new headset I bought apparently gives me intense migraines if I wear it for more than 30 seconds.
This is why I told you should have started that journey while you were doing the bike journey.
So, I still have a few more that people have been suggesting, so I'll be going through that. Ideally, I may be hooking up a few more of these acoustic panels over this week as well, because the audio has been improved, but I think maybe we can make things a little bit better. We'll see.
Yeah, you might want to order a couple mics at the same time, so you at least can go through them faster.
You mean headsets?
Yeah.
Just wear a different headset a day, basically.
Order 3 of them. Figure out, well, this one doesn't work, this one doesn't work, and this one is better than the others, but it still doesn't work. And then send all 3 of them back and then get the next 3 until you get to the one you need.
Let's see. Other than that, in terms of game wisdom updates, not much else. And we're going to be doing a few more podcasts this week. We got Tomo coming back on. We still don't know what game we're going to talk about yet, but we're going to see. So, for you, Shark, any new updates for... Can we use the new name yet, or are we still going with Project Triad?
We can use the new name. Yeah, and continue.
All right, so any new updates?
Been working on some new UI for it. Have been getting some really mixed results about the answers from it, because doing some A/B testing, although it's technically ABC testing kind of thing, and I haven't tallied the votes or anything, but it seems pretty evenly split between all 3, and it's like, oh no. But somebody, pointed out, kind of, the wireframe of it, and because of that explanation, I'm fairly confident I know what I'm going to go with, despite what everybody else said, which ironically was the same one that Josh picked. So I'm not going to tell what letter that is in case I don't want to bias anybody in case somebody votes in the future, because the vote's still open kind of thing. But been working on that new UI kind of thing, and trying to get things figured out, and going to try to, going to be working on the font. Like next stream I do, which will be next Friday on my channel, will be, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be working on the font, continuing on this UI path, and I probably won't have time for anything else because I've been trying to keep the streams to about an hour-ish kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll see from there kind of thing. So, that'll probably all I get done in that hour. Trying to, I'm trying to, cherry pick what I do on stream and then do, everything else off stream and keep the stream short so I don't run out of cherry pick content too quickly.
All right. Well, with that, let's get to some of the game news. So, not much happened this week, right, Shark?
No, nothing happened this week.
Nobody got bought.
Nobody got bought. Nobody got sold. Mm-hmm. There was, no human or company trafficking going on anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody sued a lot of people. Nobody jumped into those lawsuits or anything like that. Nothing happened. It was pretty uneventful, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly surprised.
Yeah. So of course, what happened this week is that Bethesda has been purchased by Microsoft for what was $7.6 billion.
It wasn't just Bethesda. It was Bethesda's parent company.
ZeniMax, right?
Yeah, ZeniMax. And ZeniMax owns Bethesda and a bunch of other studios.
Mm-hmm.
And including id and several other things. Which, with all the people, all the game developers out there, I definitely think they could have fallen into worse hands.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wondering if they could have fallen into better hands. Maybe not. Because
money, probably not.
Yeah, because Nintendo has that kind of money, but Nintendo would probably try to do the right thing with them, but fail in doing so because they'll put new weird controls in Doom and have you play with a fly swatter or something.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is probably the best they could have done. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it's probably the best possible outcome in these current times that could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Which is surprising.
So the official list, according to Gamasutra, was Bethesda Game Studios, id Software, ZeniMax Online Studios, Arcane, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog, and Roundhouse Studio. I don't recognize the last two on that list.
Well, you better start recognizing them because if you don't, they might roundhouse you. But yeah, so, lots of studios.
Yeah. And again, say what you will about Fallout and the Elder Scrolls games, or just Bethesda itself, but buying the company that made probably one of the most celebrated first-person shooters, as well as one of the most critically praised games with Prey, that's not exactly a small deal.
Yeah. And, hopefully Microsoft is, knows what they're doing when it comes to, this whole, buying out and, have plans to, correct the bad things that happened with Fallout 76 and everything with the Bethesda side of publishing. Because they screwed over id too.
Yep.
pretty
You know, when
badly.
they released the uncracked version, the very first release.
Yeah, I mean, they probably need to go into the Bethesda publishing and just fire everybody that works there and completely replace that. You know, just have have that all go through Microsoft publishing and bolster up the Microsoft publishing branch with more employees so they're not overwhelmed, not overworked. That's probably the best thing for them to do there, because Bethesda Publishing seems to be the core problem with everything ZeniMax has. And it's not the only problem, but it's the core problem that affects all of them, kind of thing. Well, Microsoft sometimes knows what they're doing, and other times they don't.
Yeah.
But they seem to be on the ball recently.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you got the Microsoft and Sony fanboys, losing their minds on YouTube about this news.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen any of that, but I can imagine that is just going absolutely nuts on all over YouTube. And now we're going to be quoted by them.
Yeah, and we're here on PC land, not really caring at all, are we?
Yeah. I mean, I would, at this point, I would definitely rather go to Microsoft than Sony, despite me never liking any of Microsoft's consoles and absolutely loving the PlayStation 1 and 2. Because the fact is, if it goes to Sony, we'll never see those games. Not that I really care about any of their games, but, still, I would like to have at least the option of seeing those games.
Mm-hmm. And for the Microsoft fanboys, you can go attack Shark for saying that, not me.
I'm the one that said, I did. Why can't we go into Microsoft? Despite
where they've already they're beginning to make the attack videos. It's already too late. And so this is definitely a major shakeup in an already crazy year when it comes to, just about everything that's going on right now. And again, for us with our PCs, it's not exactly going to be that big of a change. But Microsoft is definitely throwing a lot of money into their next console cycle.
Mm-hmm. And AMD is too.
Mm-hmm.
Since AMD is making the graphics cards for both Sony and Microsoft on their Xbox.
Yep. And I think this is a wise move for Microsoft. Again, Microsoft has been having that issue with not having really solid first-party games. And of course, the last few years, they bought major companies to try and, get around that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to put, I think, Sony in a very weird position, because have we really heard anything amazing for the PS5? I mean, Demon's Souls Remaster looks great and all, but it is coming to the PC, so we're not exactly, being scared about that.
Yeah. I still haven't heard much amazing on the Switch. And that's the reason why I'm waiting on buying one. But yeah, I mean, nothing amazing for the Xbox. Nothing amazing for the PlayStation 5 either. But, I mean, there has been certainly big games, but not what I would call amazing games. Of course, part of that might be because, most of the games they do is AAA, so...
Yeah.
That might be a factor.
Yeah, it's going to be, again, very tricky, I think, to get people or to see where this is all going to fall. Especially, again, when it comes to the exclusive side. Because big names like Doom, Elder Scrolls, they gotta be multi-platform. Hold on one second. I mean, Skyrim was on every single console ever made, and 10 that aren't made right now.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that they have to have games, and they're playing the exclusive role, and Sony's definitely hard up on that, while Microsoft is on the the more consumer friendly path of let whoever wants to buy the game buy it, as long as they're not on the Sony platform. Actually, they still don't even they're not even cutting off from the Sony platform, because I believe there's several ZeniMax games supposed to go that are supposed to be timed exclusives on the PlayStation, and Microsoft is actually still honoring that, which is really amazing on Microsoft's side, because you know that if Sony bought ZeniMax and they had exclusive timed exclusives going to Xbox, 100%. Those would not only the timed exclusive will be canceled, but the game coming to that platform as a total would be canceled.
Oh yes.
Where Microsoft is not only not canceling the game for that for Sony's platform, they're not canceling the timed exclusive, which is really big and really consumer friendly of Microsoft, and that's something I never expected to say.
Oh no! Next, you're going to tell me you've bought all your games on Epic Games Store. And speaking about Epic, let's go to the other bit of news. So, any updates regarding the massive lawsuit?
Yes, there has been several companies have jumped on sizable companies have jumped on the lawsuit on Epic and Microsoft's side. Since Microsoft has jumped in with Epic when suing Apple, kind of thing. So has several other companies. I think it was 7 new companies jumped in there. One of which being Spotify. And nobody uses Spotify. That's not a big company at all that's fighting against Apple. The support on Epic's side is growing by the minute. And you know how many people are supporting Apple?
How many?
I mean, you just heard them. There were crickets.
Yeah. Well, I have my filter on, so I don't think the microphone picked up the crickets.
So yeah, it's Apple and the crickets versus Epic, Microsoft, SoundCloud, and a bunch of other companies that are pretty sizable. They're kind of thing. The odds are starting to pile up against Apple, and that's a good thing in my opinion.
Yeah, it's still very early days for sure in terms of what this will all mean, but yeah, again, this year is just crazy wacky time, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember this one YouTuber I watch. He was he said that that 2019 was bad, and he had cursed it by saying it was going to be good, but 2020 is going to be good, and he cursed it.
Great.
And then he's like, "I'm sorry, guys. If I knew that, I wouldn't have done it."
And I just want more podcast guests. I didn't want to start a whole pandemic to force everyone to get stuck inside for the year.
Sure you didn't. You just wanted more podcast guests.
Yeah. And now we're running out again because everyone's going back to work.
Yep. Because they're working outside of the studio kind of thing.
But with that, let's get to some weird games and then we will get to our main topic. So here's hoping nothing breaks too badly when I switch over. Let's see. Oh. What is that?
Yeah, I need to swap over to... And I need to... I'm getting infinite screen. I need to find this.
For my thumbnail, that is Victor Vrand and Surviving Mars. Shark went, I guess, the clickbaity anime girl theme for his.
Yeah, I was like, let's search. I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's search for just this terminology, and then I was like, I found my thumbnail, and I didn't know it was my thumbnail at that point, and I was like, hey Josh, look at this ridiculous thing that came up. I'm pretty sure that's referring to something else, but it's similar kind of thing. And then I searched and searched and searched for something else to do as a thumbnail. Couldn't find anything. I was like, that one's starting to grow on me. Well, let's go with that and just modify it.
All right. So, my first game, this is Shooting Type, which I'm sure has no relation to R-Type whatsoever.
Yeah, none at all.
I'm fairly sure they stole the asset here for the kind of ring shot. And they replaced the first boss. Instead of an alien, you fight a giant whale.
Well, I meant they're welling, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. It's a single-player side-scrolling game. Ooh, and there's 26 kinds of enemies. There's many kinds of enemies, according to the bullet point.
So it's many, and 26 at the same time.
Yep.
So we have an official definition of what many means. It's officially 26. So if anybody, says they have many of something, that they have 26.
Also, what is going on the bottom left with the key press and the controller right there?
Seems like on-screen instructions that apparently never turn off. Or at least they didn't turn it off for the screenshots.
Yeah. Alright. My next game is Shattering Obsidian. Ooh. And it's a game with a setting and story unlike anything you have played before. You'll play not as a warrior, but as a healer. Let's see. Ooh, handcrafted graphics.
We've never played a game as a healer.
No.
Never.
Based on a collection of short stories. And look at these graphics.
Oh yeah, they are top tier.
I like the battle scene right here.
I can almost guarantee you. I can tell you with 99.99% accuracy that this was made in RPG Maker.
Oh, really?
Just a rough guess. And I think they probably should have used RPG Maker graphics because they would have probably looked better.
Mm-hmm. Alright, this next game is Time Golf Squad. And I picked this because of the name. It's an indie RPG action game with golf-inspired gameplay.
What the golf?
That's like going all across there. So I'm not seeing any real, there's a little bit of golf.
More golf than what's in What the Golf. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is true.
But What the Golf is an amazing game.
Mm-hmm. Apparently you need mysticism if you're going to play golf, too.
I mean, that went without saying.
I would need magic in order to be good at golf, that's for sure.
Yep.
Oh, good.
You certainly aren't going to get good.
Mm-mm. Traditional level unlocking plus boss battles. How you have boss battles in a golf game?
You see, you have in normal golf, you have these bigger holes in the the boss battles, they're like 1 pixel. They're within 1 pixel, so you can only get the ball in one specific way.
Mm-mm. No.
It has to be exact.
I will put in for it and we'll see what happens.
And they move at the same time.
So the next game gets on the list, Space Flux, just because of this graphic, which, if you stare at it too long, I'm pretty sure you start hallucinating.
Yeah.
Oof. Oh, good. Infinitely recurring levels.
You know what we need to do? We need to get this right here and then create an infinite screen with this on it.
Oh, yes. Just give everyone a seizure warning.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Don't know why you're holding a pineapple while you're holding an assault rifle in the screenshot.
Well, maybe they're pining for an assault rifle.
Oh, this is another lovely screenshot right here. Hmm.
Yeah, that one is.
Whew. Again, oh, and you're not using a laser cannon, you're using a laser cannon.
I just wonder how much extracurricular, I can't even speak. I just wonder how many things. I don't know how to say it without getting demodded from YouTube.
Mm-hmm. So this next one gets on for the art. This is Lancelot's Hangover, The Quest for the Holy Booze. And these are some thumbnails right here.
Oh yeah, you can see that holy booze.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure this was handmade.
Oh, absolutely. It's not pixel art. I like the guy on the crutches.
Oh, yeah. Get lost in a very boring maze.
Is that one of the things it says?
Yes. Phone is ringing in the background. Hopefully it won't be picked up too much. Oh, no. Oh, God, it keeps going here.
It's going and going and going. It's the Energizer Bunny.
Mm-hmm. Alright, and then with that, I do have Who's It, Rat's Tail. I get a few games from it, but I don't really use it as much. So our first game from Shark, this is a visual novel RPG. I guess you are fighting the zombies, or are you trying to romance them? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you're fighting them.
Okay. Oh, you wake up from an alcohol-related coma from your own father. Oh, no. And the description just keeps going.
I mean, it sort of has some Persona vibes to it.
Mm-hmm.
Very loosely, but it sort of does have vibes from it.
Let's see.
But very, very different.
Yes. It looks like it's just moving around like dungeon crawling. What the heck is this thumbnail?
Which one? The story?
Why is a guy holding what appears to be the Sailor Moon staff in one hand and a frog in the other, or a frog puppet?
That's a good question. You probably have to get a key to find out.
Hmm. Why is the crow smoking a cigar, or smoking a cigarette?
I did not see that one.
Oh, he's a crowing rebel. But does he have a cause?
He's got a call.
Mm-hmm. I like your powers. You have exhalation, power thrust, blinder, compassion, and then sweep.
That's some good skills right there. Especially the power thrust.
Now, I'm purposely not clicking on some of these thumbnails just to be on the safe side here.
Oh, I clicked on all of them already.
Ooh, and this one's called... Oh, you get an attack called Over the Painbow. You sure didn't even write the jokes for this game?
Oh, my jokes are way better than that. Don't
And
even
this
give me
next
that.
game is one of those ones. Remember we talked about naming games? This one's called Cheat Game.
Seems like a legit name. I mean, like, everybody that plays this will think that that's a very valuable game because it's reverse psychology, and that's exactly how not games works.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. You run, try not to get killed by monsters. You get all these skills.
Although looking at everything on here, it does look like a pretty cheap game because like every screenshot is on the same map, implying that there's only one map, and the backgrounds are pretty decent, but the sprites do not match the backgrounds.
And you had to use a game over screen right here.
Yeah, and that's just pointing to, the design is just getting the best score, and that's it.
Do we have micro games on the list, Shark, for an upcoming topic?
I think we do, but
Okay.
remind me after, and I will check.
All right. So
Or
this next
Rascal
game,
can remind me after.
all right, this one is Grandmother, where apparently you are stuck in a crazy. You're stuck in a mansion held by a crazy granny.
Is she a crazy granny? I thought she was undead granny.
Oh no. I'm pretty sure this is just a port of a mobile game. Or they could just be copying that one.
I mean, they obviously love their grandmother because they named the game after her.
Mm-hmm. And this next one, Shark picked this one because it reminded him of the animal game that we played, or we saw. This is Deity. It is a meditative relaxation. No, combines the beauty of meditative relaxation with a playable video game experience. And it takes about 2 hours.
Not as exciting as that animal game we played the other day, or
Nothing
not
will be.
where the animals were doing all kinds of crazy things, but it does kind of remind me of it. And expected playtime of 2 hours for a walking simulator that looks empty. That's a lot of red flags right there.
If you could play as the robot unicorn from that Adult Swim game, that would have helped, I think.
Yeah, that would have helped. At this point, I think anything would have helped.
Yeah. So this is Rocket Squad. It sounds like a little bit like that Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time with 3 characters or people controlling individual parts of a ship.
Yeah. Also has a little FTL vibes to it too.
So my question is it just Deathmatch and King of the Hill, or is there an actual, more to this game?
That's a good question. These
screenshots aren't giving anything here.
I think this game has a lot of potential, but I think sadly it's going to be dead on arrival because, I doubt they have enough time to fix every piece of art in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be dead on arrival because of that. I mean, but, gameplay-wise, it looks like it could be really quite fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, also with the point behind you said about the deathmatch in King of the Hill, if that's the only modes that's out there, that means it's multiplayer only, and it's going to be dead, and you ain't going to be able to find a match.
Yep.
So, in theory, not only is it a good game that's going to fail because of the graphics, then it's going to double fail because it's multiplayer only, and the 1-2 people that actually do pick up the game will never run into each other, and they'll never have a match, and then they'll refund after matching for an hour and a half and no matches.
And here's another eye strain inducing game, Treasure Hunting, which, can you tell what's happening in the screenshot?
I'm still trying to bring it up on my side. Is this one it? No.
This just looks like a mess of icons.
I mean, what it kind of reminds me of is like a maze game. A
Mm-hmm.
maze game with like all kinds of weird mechanics in it.
Hey, John. So here's a. I love this description. It's a single player game with 30 stages, but there's only 17 types of gimmicks. And 14 type of gimmicks that force the player to move. And I like how the second bullet point says hard difficulty, but the third one says because the game is simple, even beginners can enjoy it.
Yeah, it seems like they're almost like they're contradicting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's just how they wrote it. Also, hello, John.
Alright, so this next one, Zero Idol. This is one that both Shark and I saw. And I don't know. I like the unlock the this term, which I'm pretty sure will be demodded if we leave it on for too long.
I mean, it looks like it has, potential, but the aesthetics, I think, is going to shoot that one down.
Yep.
As
Speaking
usual.
about aesthetics, I know what's it, Clicker Quest 2 is still coming along. No idea if that game will ever kind of like do its thing. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reviews are mixed right now for Clicker Heroes 2. And I think they lowered the price as well.
Yeah, that was the one that was strictly for sale, wasn't it?
Yeah. Or maybe not. Nah. We should have a discussion about idle design at some point, but probably not today. That's, I think, its own thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should I put in a key for this one?
Maybe. I would, I guess. Yeah. Just to see what they do with it.
So this next one, Beam. This one, it looks interesting, but I think these screenshots aren't really doing justice for it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a game. I cannot remember the name of the game, but it reminds me of a game that was at, I think it was PAX, like about 3-4 years ago, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easily the kind of winner at that PAX. And this one reminds me a lot of it.
I do like that your spaceship comes with an AI that's intelligent and sassy. Because it's very important to describe your AI helper as sassy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you have a non-sassy AI, then you have a un-AI. Or maybe a un-I.
Well, I'll put it in for it. Maybe we'll get it. Alright, this next one, After Crisis. And I love this description here of all these details. Yes, we have joined the combat system. Shark, have you joined the combat?
Oh, absolutely, I have. Yes, we have joined the combat system.
Mm-hmm. Different towns can make the protagonist's family survive in different ways. Now we have built dozens of completely different screens or scenes. And you have multiple plots, not just one.
You have all the plots.
I love that the fifth and final point. We have designed a new world in which all forces, characters, and events operate and happen on their own. Under this delicate and fragile balance, every decision we make may trigger the butterfly effect and break the fragile balance. That's a game dev encapsulated right there. You do one change and the whole game destroys itself.
Yep. That is truly true. Game dev in a nutshell.
I'm not seeing any embracing combat here. Apparently you have health, hunger, and cold as your main things there. Oh, it's an indie game too.
Well, that means it's
Oh,
not
you have to make
AAA.
a choice.
Make a
Not-
choice.
Yeah, just one choice.
Well, you better make the right one.
Yeah.
Because, that choice is probably at the very end of the game. And if you don't make the right choice, then you lose the game.
And so this next game feels a little weird given our time right now. This is Isolation Simulator. You get to simulate being stuck inside a room.
And alone.
Yep.
Which has absolutely nothing to do with anything going on right now.
And remember, this is only a prototype, not a full vertical slice. Okay.
That sounds like a great way to release a game.
Mm-hmm. How do you win this game?
By figuring out that it's a prototype, not a vertical slice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing you can walk around in this place and walk around and walk around and realize that there is nothing here and you are completely isolated from any kind of fun, enjoyment, or anything.
Alright, so this final game looks to be... doesn't look too bad. Some of the art looks pretty nice.
Yeah. It's
So it's
sort of
supposed
our
to be an
winner.
adventure game like Carmen Sandiego.
Carmen Sandiego was an adventure game?
Guess?
I thought it was a TV game show. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, played by a whole bunch of kids?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's what it was.
I will put in a key for this one. We'll see how this one goes.
Yeah. It could be good, and it can also be full of red flags.
Mm-hmm. Alright. But with that, let's get to our main topic for today, and that's talking about moving to a new genre as a developer. And this is one of those topics that you don't necessarily, I think about, especially if you're in game dev. But it is something that we're kind of seeing a lot, or seeing many developers make these mistakes when they're moving over. So the kind of game that led to the inspiration for this was that Woken game that we played on stream for the Saturday night show. And how many red flags did you catch in that one?
There was a game?
Mm-hmm.
I only seen a giant red flag. That's all I seen. I didn't see a game. I just seen a red flag. I thought you were playing a red flag, not a game.
Mm-hmm. And Woken was just essentially just a cascading series of issues and problems, all compounded by the fact that it was a Kickstarter game. And the Kickstarter, I looked this up, it came from developers who formerly worked at Crytek. And so, it didn't come from, somebody who's never made a game before. But it came from people who didn't exactly make that genre. And this is, I think, one of those very tricky lessons for developers. A few weeks ago, we did a cast talking about kind of mistakes of developers, or about branding yourself as a studio versus individual games. And Shark brought up the point about how many developers who succeed tend to stick with, am I making a game for, tactical or puzzle fans or turn-based? Or am I, an action developer, hardcore Twitch-based controls? And you have to be very careful when you're crossing the streams along those lines. My voice is dying.
Or crossing the bowstrings.
Yeah. But when you are moving from one genre to another, especially if they're completely different in terms of design and implementation, you have to be a little bit more mindful of what that means from a developer. And to Rat's question, playing full red flags, I don't think we have. Have you, Shark?
I mean, I think you played a lot of them on the spotlight.
But did they turn out great? That's the big question.
Uh, Not so far. That Cavity Busters has potential for that because it had a ton of red flags.
Yeah. Maybe that one, but that is still in early access.
Yeah, that one definitely started out with a ton of red flags.
Yeah. But I mean, if your game starts out with red flags and it's at 1.0, yeah, you're going to be in for a rough ride unless you can pull off a No Man's Sky.
Yeah. AKA if you were published by Sony and then Sony throw you under the bus and you lied about everything publicly hundreds of times and you had all this airtime and you worked for Hello Games and your name was Sean Murray, then yes, you can pull that off.
Yep.
But otherwise, probably not.
And as a new developer, when you are going from one genre to another, there's, like we said, there's several big things that I want to discuss. Like, the first thing is the fact that game development's kind of big, the good and the bad about it is that every genre is different in terms of its design. And what that means, of course, is that you are given a lot of creative freedom to do whatever the heck you want. But conversely, it also means that you can't necessarily translate a lot of your understanding from one genre to the next. If id, who makes some of the best first-person shooters, decide, you know what, we're going to make a city builder next, or a visual novel game, it's going to be a very uphill battle to see what they can turn out. We kind of saw this in some extent with the whole Anthem debacle with BioWare, and how one of the most celebrated RPG developers on the planet tried to make a looter shooter without having any background in that genre.
Yeah. Now, I don't think that you should necessarily stick to one genre. I mean, that's a safe way to play it, kind of thing. But safe. Like you need to keep things safely extreme, not just safe. Don't keep it safely safe. Because that won't turn out for you. Because, I mean, safely safe would be making the same game several times over and just calling it something different. And that would be safely safe. Because it's the same game. You knew the results from the first one, so you know the results from the future ones, and it's all in the same genre. And it's the exact same game, just with a couple changes, kind of thing. Maybe different characters, whatever. It's same game. Which a lot of people interpret that as Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy is very vastly different between each iteration, but, like, most people don't realize that. People who have not played all of them. Because, like, not every system, but a lot of systems in that game change vastly. Like, the magic system in every Final Fantasy is completely different mechanics. Except for maybe the first, couple or something. As of for Final Fantasy VII versus Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy VII had the materia system where, nobody had the same... everybody could use magic kind of thing. And they were able to, they equipped the magic by equipping these little gems kind of thing that, that you could combo and link together based off your weapons kind of thing, where FF8 had a magic system where you would go to a waypoint kind of thing. You would draw magic out of that waypoint, and that would be consumable magic, and it would only be for that character and only within a certain quantity, and then you'd have to draw multiple times to get more, and then you could assign that magic to a specific stat to apply a modifier to that stat and the magic itself. And there, I think you also had to combine it with the Aeons, I think they were called in that game. There, where in 7 the Aeons or summons in that one were just the just a materia themselves. So they were insanely different. They were more different than Pokemon Red and Blue and Pokemon, versus the brand new Pokemon. They were more different than that. So, I mean, there was a vast difference in there in the mechanics of Final Fantasy.
Yep. And again, that goes with iterating and evolving a game, which is another topic that we have certainly spent a lot of time on. And when you're looking at switching a genre or switching to a new track like that, you have to understand that you are kind of starting, in some cases, not always back at 0, but maybe like 5 or 10. Like Shark and I were talking about before the stream, that for people who study design, companies like Blizzard, or maybe I guess like Valve does that to some extent, but Blizzard, of course, being, or used to be, one of the big examples, they are really good at figuring out how a design works. Mm-hmm. And that is something you need to understand as a developer. This isn't a case of, I'm going to make a completely new genre I've never worked on, and I will never touch any games of that genre until I make mine.
Yeah, that's nothing but a giant red flag.
Yeah. Dark Souls sold so many copies, I'll make my own Dark Souls game in 1 year.
Yeah. So, basically, if you're really, really design heavy, moving from one genre to another, it's probably resetting yourself from 10, if your knowledge of 10, to like 5 for that particular genre. Now then, if you're not very design focused and everything, it's going to be, changing you from a 10 to a 1 or even a 0 kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Because, the way you get that number up is you've got to research. Go in there and play tons of examples of that game. Like my last game, the word of the day, Chromasia, was a tactical RPG. Our current game is a CCG. Now, I have played plenty of CCGs in my life, but, as a matter of fact, I was number 7th in the world at, Dot Hack, the physical card game. And, and I beat everybody in the top 20, basically, in a one-on-one match, outside of tournaments, if not inside of tournaments.
So you played a few CCGs, right?
Yeah, and even with all that, when I started working on this game, I needed to not only depend on what I had in the past, and past knowledge, but I went to go get fresh knowledge, and, went to, I went and played a bunch of Hearthstone, even though I hate Hearthstone. I played it in the past, but I played more of it, recently. Well, not recent, but recently when I was starting out on this game. Played a lot of Magic the Gathering. I played the Magic the Gathering Arena. I played that for, I think, like 6-7 months kind of thing. Probably about 3-4 hours a day kind of thing for a while. Like, I spent a lot of time, researching that one. Yeah. And played a whole bunch of other card games. Like, if there was a card game out there that I could play for free or buy, that I could, was actually interested in buying, I played it kind of thing. And if there was a free one out there that I didn't like Hearthstone, I played it too.
And that is actually the perfect segue into my next point. That when you are researching a genre, you don't only play the best examples of it. Like, if I'm making a platformer and the only game I play is Mario or Super Meat Boy, that helps to some extent, but it doesn't go as far as it should. And the reason is that when you are playing the very best examples of a genre, you are playing it sans all the mistakes, all the design issues that they ran into, all the iteration. You are seeing it's basically, think of it as, 100 steps to make a great video game, and you miss the previous 90 to 95 of them.
Mm-hmm. Now,
exactly. So play Bubsy.
Now, when I was doing the research and everything, I came across something very important. that I realized that was very inspirational for me, kind of thing. When I looked at Magic the Gathering, I seen their mana system, and like, you had the, 4 of any plus, these specifics kind of thing, or whatever cost it was. And it was very, I guess you would call it a gradient kind of thing, where things could always, you could have a ton of things that cost 3 mana, but because of the way that you did specifics kind of thing, whether it was, this one cost just 3 of any, or this one costs 1 of any and 2 skulls kind of thing, 2 swamps. It vastly changed the difficulty of playing that, because like if you're playing a solo black deck, a 3 of any is the same as 1 and 1 of any and 2 blacks. But if you were playing a dual colored deck kind of thing, it became a lot harder. That basically became essentially sort of a 5 cost mana when you were running two colors, and it sort of came like a 9 cost card when you were running 3 colors, kind of thing. And it was almost a scaling cost that scaled based on how you built your deck in varying depth, which was the good part of it. Made it a lot easier to balance, because these things could have vastly different stats, and you could legitimately figure out a reason to not run the bigger stats, even though they cost the exact same amount of mana, because if you're running solid black, you'd be like, yes, I'm running that one, the bigger one. But if you're running a 3-color deck, you'd be like, that's a lot better card, but that's a lot harder to play, and by the time I play it, it won't be useful anymore, so I'm going to stick with the lesser version because that is better for me. Mm-hmm. And like, there's just so many depth in there. But then when you went to Hearthstone kind of thing, looked at their mana system kind of thing, they automatically, I didn't finish on Magic. So the issue with Magic that they had was that they had all your mana was in your deck. So you would do a draw of your cards, and probably 70% of the time you would either get a handful of nothing but mana, basically. So you would just be playing mana all these turns and not able to do anything, or you would get a hand with basically no mana kind of thing, and then you couldn't play anything despite you having a handful of great cards kind of thing. And that was the real flaw in that system kind of thing that I see. Getting mana screwed. Where Hearthstone had it where you got an automatic 1 mana per turn, and they still had ramp like Magic the Gathering, where you could increase the amount of mana, and their mana just, you didn't have to worry about getting mana screwed. But the fact is that all their cost was just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there was no variation in there. So like when you had a 3 cost card that was 3 attack power, and you had another 3 cost card that was 3 attack power and draw 2 cards, well, you're going to go with the one that draw 2 cards, unless there's some kind of thing in your deck that says do not draw cards, or else you'll hurt yourself, kind of thing. And which is not pretty much hardly any of the decks, but if any at all. But it's just a and then you look at it, and that's a higher rarity. It may even be an extra rare kind of thing that you have to. It basically becomes pay to win at that point. And the thing I've seen about that is, what if you could combine the two systems and take the best of both worlds and dump the worst of both worlds? And that's what I did in mine.
Yeah. And again, the only reason, or the only way you can do that, is that you play these games.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's a bit of a challenge I want to ask everybody who's watching this live recorded. If you designed a game, I want to know up to 5 games that you played or researched in order to help you make that game. And most likely, most of you who will do this will put the big name games. If I'm making a platform, it's going to be Mario, Sonic, Super Meat Boy, maybe Ori and the Blind Forest, Hollow Knight, stuff like that. And again, you can certainly play really great examples of games. They show you the zenith of these genres. They show you what these games should look like. But if you want to understand the genre at length or at depth, you have to play the games that don't do so well. The games that are, like 50 to 60% on Metacritic. The ones that are mixed. Because those are the games where you're going to see those flaws. You're going to see those things that annoy the hell out of you that you're going to realize that you won't see if you play the perfect examples of it.
Yeah, but just because a game is popular doesn't mean that it's necessarily a great version. Hearthstone is a great example of that one.
Yeah.
But, like, and you don't need to limit yourself to just 5. Like, 5 is...
Oh, that's just an example. That was just, you're going to be playing more than 5.
Yeah, hopefully. Because, like, playing only 5, that's a giant red flag. You need to play, at bare minimum, 10, 15. And you should probably be looking to play a lot more than that. Hence why most game devs, that are successful have a massive Steam library.
Yeah. And again, when we said earlier about switching games, it depends on the person. Like, for Shark and I, we analyze games, morning, noon, and night. Like, this is what we do as our bread and butter. Like, I can switch genres, I can analyze these games, as easy as breathing. But, like Shark said earlier, if you're not versed in that, if you come more from an artistic background or a programming background, you don't analyze design, you need to get that reference.
Or get somebody on your team that is focused on design. You probably need that either way.
And I know I saw a comment earlier saying about reading the comments on games. That helps to some extent, but it doesn't really get the heart of the UI and the UX. The only way you're really going to experience that is you have to play those games yourself. And this is why when we had that argument about, being able to emulate classic games or play those titles, why I'm on the side being able to emulate them. Because watching somebody play a game, or better yet, if you're watching, a grandmaster speedrunner play a game, you're not really going to get a lot out of what made that experience so challenging, because they have, over 500 to 1,000 hours in that single game.
Yeah. And the thing is back to reading the comments, like, I find that more valuable on games you've played, kind of thing. Like I, in my last game, went and, looked at the, reviews for, the reviews and comments for games like Disgaea and Final Fantasy Tactics and all these other games, kind of thing. And, through reading that, the one thing I realized that, people, when in this genre, the new people anyway, have so much problems with onboarding, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, onboarding is definitely a huge issue with these games, and it seems to be the main barrier of entry that keeps the genre being niche. So I was like, okay, well, we're going to build the best onboarding design we can possibly build, so that we can, be sort of that, I guess you'd call it a gateway drug kind of thing, to get people in, which was especially important since we were planning, originally to release on the Switch about a month behind Mario plus Rabbids. Because what we were betting on, and we didn't get the game done in time, but what we were betting on was a month after Mario plus Rabbids had, released, would have gotten a lot of people into the genre, kind of thing, and they would, after a month, they would have finished that game probably and be looking for something new, and that would be the perfect time to hit with a tactical RPG that, helps onboard them in a different kind of tactical RPG. And of course, the game took about another year to get done after that. But, and we never released on Switch, and many other things went awry, but, point is we found the problem. We found a key problem that spanned basically the entire genre, which is, I think, a leading cause to why that genre is niche. So if we could unniche the genre for our particular game, we should be able to theoretically do a lot more. As long as, we don't release on Steam and Steam buries us in the first week because we don't have good aesthetics, which is a completely different problem.
Yeah. Which genre's uplink? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there's been enough examples of that to do. I know there's that Fifthel Games is working on a solitaire FMV visual novel spy game thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, like when you're looking at these genres, and like I said earlier, like Blizzard is a key example. So at their height, that they're able to pick apart these games incredibly well to understand what works and what doesn't. And that is where I think a lot of new developers tend to struggle with when they make that switch. That they think, I already made a great game, surely I can make a great game in this genre. And I always go back to the example, unfortunately, of Clockwork Empires from Gaslamp Games. That Clockwork Empires was designed to be a 3D Dwarf Fortress game. It had a lot of charm to it. Developers talked this up. They, of course, succeed with Dungeons of Dreadmore. But, again, it ran to that problem of, yeah, they have an idea, but where's the actual game? And they spent, I think, the better part of 3-4 years chasing this idea, and it led to the collapse of the company.
It's rough.
Yeah.
And if you're doing a game of multiple genres kind of thing, if you're doing a genre mesh kind of thing, like say you're making let's say a tactical RPG that is, that's probably a bad example. Let's say you're making a puzzle game that is also an RPG kind of thing, then you need to study both of them.
Oh, yes.
And you need to study both genres in probably even more detail than what you needed to do on just one. So not only did you double your work from getting your, two genres, you probably 4 times your work because you need to study both of them 2 times harder.
Yeah. Again, you're basically fitting square pegs together to fit into like a triangular hole instead of a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
And I play that game, Murder by Numbers, which was a Phoenix Wright mixed with Cross kind of game. And there were people who, ranted and raved about it. And it just was okay. I kept it after I bought it. It just seemed like an okay game. I wanted to support developers in that case. But I don't think it deserved as much praise as it should have gotten for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the difficult situation we're in as game developers as a whole. Mm-hmm. The market just is in such a state where if you're not really discoverable and you don't have your marketing on point and you don't have your aesthetics on point, there's not much you can do, kind of thing. It's sad that game design is not the main thing that keeps you selling, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The main two in the current market, mind you, and this is all subject to change, but the main 2 things right now in the current market that are the leading causes for success, or rather not the lack of success, rather, because having these 2 things alone won't necessarily get you success. Nothing will necessarily get you success, but if you don't have these 2 things, you're pretty much guaranteed to not succeed. and that is art of a high enough quality through style, not through graphical horsepower, but through style, and good marketing. Those, if you don't have both of those things, you are pretty much guaranteed to fail. Like,
yeah. And again, like some of these games that get some buzz and you think, oh, they succeed really well, they may only have like 300-400 reviews total on Steam. And again, success in the game industry is its own topic in of itself because every studio defines it differently. But and again, like going back to our topic, you have to learn a lot when it comes to succeeding in this industry. And there's always that thought of, if you would have done X instead of Y, could you have gotten 200 more sales? Could you have gotten 2,000 more sales? And again, like as Charles said, with marketing, like marketing is one of the hardest things I feel for developers to analyze.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many people right now are trying to pour endlessly over Fall Guys and Among Us to try and figure out how they succeeded?
Well, I tell you that that Fall Guys definitely did not do the best on marketing. So, even if you find out exactly how they succeeded, don't use that as a direct model. Don't use anything as a direct model for that matter. You need to analyze as many things as you can, figure out commonalities, and then figure out how that applies to your game and in what ways, and all these other factors, and you can get better, kind of thing. But you need to study marketing in general, or have somebody who is already well versed in it. I am no marketing expert, kind of thing, but I'm working on becoming one. And I am very much in a what I would call rookie status, and that does not mean that I'm bad at marketing. That just means that out of, let's just say the knowledge of marketing out there is the equivalent of the Pacific Ocean, I have like maybe a small lake kind of thing. I have a small lake of knowledge. And, that's not crapping on small lakes, and where a lot of people out there don't even have a glass of water, and you need, I think you need a lot more than a small lake to market a game.
No, oh yes, you do. And yeah, and to the comments in chat, yeah, Among Us got lucky. But again, there are a lot of developers out there who are probably trying to, say, I'm just going to copy them and I'll be successful.
Yeah. Did they realize that Among Us failed horribly for, I think it was like 4 years they were released? And
like Mediatonic with Fall Guys, that was their 74th or 75th game that they released. Like, again, a lot of people, like, this gets back at this heart of this topic, that people who only look at the best examples, they don't understand the traps that come along the way.
Or even the history of those best examples, because, like we said with Among Us kind of thing, it was a failed game. It was a failed game for many, many years. And then just all of a sudden they got lucky and it blew up kind of thing.
And I'm going to say something that may get me in trouble. Among Us is not the poster child for video game success.
No.
Even if it blew up today, even if it is now making that company more money than they could have imagined, it's still a game failure.
Yeah.
Because if it takes your game 3, 5, 10 years to be profitable, you did something wrong, basically. And they admitted to the marketing side.
Yeah. Unless it was just a hobbyist game and you weren't planning on selling it to begin with.
Yeah.
But that's a completely different story. We're talking about commercial games.
Hmm.
And
And
they just got lucky. That's essentially what it is.
yeah,
It's essentially the game failed, and then many years later, somebody comes along and they see a diamond laying down on the ground. They're like, "Holy crap! Here's a diamond. Let me go show everybody else." And then everybody comes in, and or probably more of a diamond in the rough. And then everybody comes in, and they all want the diamond in the rough kind of thing.
yeah.
But the fact is that diamond has in the rough has been sitting in that one place for many years, maybe even eons, kind of thing, and nobody knew about it.
It's almost an analog to the roguelike genre. Because when I was doing research into it and looking at all the games, like we said, a lot of people look at roguelikes as Binding of Isaac, Dead Cells, Slay the Spire. That's not what a roguelike is. That's not what a traditional roguelike. And there are people who only understand roguelikes from those games. They don't understand all the other games that came before it. And
Yeah, because roguelikes have been around since rogue. All the rogues have been around. The first rogue came out like in the 80s.
I think like 1980,
70s?
1981. I have to check my book notes for that.
It might
But
even
yeah.
been in the 70s. It was
Mhm.
it was a long time ago. That genre is one of the oldest genres we have, and
Most people don't understand it.
yeah, most people don't even realize that. Hey, this is not a brand new genre. This is a genre that's been around since probably about the time adventure games were around.
And for the next 3 months, anytime I see a roguelike versus roguelite argument on Twitter, I'm going to have to insert myself into it and say, read my book. that will answer the question. That won't get annoying to people, right?
No.
Randomly show up in Twitter.
You
There's
should
your
read my book. It will explain exactly what that is.
Yeah. And again, so much about getting into a new rogue and like. There we go, I did it. So much about getting into a new genre is about kind of resetting your thought process. And I won't go to, I think Rat's Tail said this a few minutes ago, about trying to look at new communities or see what the fandom and the fan base is like. And that is another very big point about this. You have to, if you're going to go into a new genre, you have to understand what the people like about said genre.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making, let's say, a card game, and you think to yourself, you know what, fans really like, card art. Well, I'm not going to use any card art in my game, and I'm sure they'll learn to appreciate that.
Oh,
No,
absolutely.
no, they're not going to. And again, being able to manage, navigate the waves of crazy and hardened fandoms like that is a challenge when it comes to being a developer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if if a lot of games in that genre has a thing, then more than likely you need to have a thing. You know, that's part. That's with my current game. We had to. You look at all the CCGs out there, and you see one key thing in common between all of them in their fan bases. There are specific streams and streamers out there that only stream to open card packs because the card packs are open, super flashy and fancy and everything else.
So
And
many mobile games, like there are like dedicated mobile streamers for loot box openings. Like
mm-hmm.
that's all they do on their channel.
Yeah, and so we have to make a super fancy, super polished, amazing, knock your socks off way to open up packs and everything. We have to apply so much polish there, it's going to be crazy. Because if we don't, then we're going to be looked at as the inferior, crappier example.
Exactly. And how many games have we have played where we've said, why should I play this game? That Woken last night. Why should I have played Woken if I already have Grim Dawn, Path of Exile, Diablo, Titan Quest, and a few, probably dozen other examples I'm forgetting right now?
Mm-hmm.
And why should I give them $40 for that?
I don't think there's easy. I don't think there's any reason for that.
Yeah. And like we've said, when you are entering a new genre, you are in essence either directly or indirectly competing with other examples of it. Again, if your game is 100% original and new, then you do have a bit of advantage there. But that still doesn't afford you the option of just saying, I'm going to ignore all the good of this genre and just kind of like come in like a bulldozer and try and make my own game.
I don't think games really compete against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're the exact same game. If you're just making the exact same game, nothing really different kind of thing, then yeah, you're competing. But if you're making something different, or, just different kind of thing, but not like totally different kind of thing. We've always said that you either got to be different or better kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're different, then you're not competing against them. If you're better, then you are.
Yeah.
So, if you're different, then you're not, you're avoiding that competition. You're still going to be compared to them, but you're not directly competing. Now, if you're better or worse, or the equal to, you're going to definitely be compared to them. And, the thing is you're going to have to outshoot the one that you're going to have to be significantly better than the other one to have a chance. Because the fact is everybody already owns the other one. So you're going to have to, give yourself enough better to actually convince them that that's enough better to buy a whole nother game they already own that's better kind of thing. It's like, if let's say, they make Diablo 2 kind of thing, and you make Diablo 2.1, nobody's going to be really interested in that.
Yeah.
Because it's not different, it's not better enough that it really makes a difference. Now then, if you make Diablo 2.5, 2.8 kind of thing, then yeah, you might be better enough to actually have a chance of succeeding kind of thing.
But
never go Diablo 3.
Yeah. You're going to convince people that your Diablo 2.5 is going to be worthier than just playing Diablo 2. And again, this is why you need to look at all examples of this genre. Because if you're just copying, again with Woken, it very much looks like they just copied Path of Exile, but put a very expensive and powerful engine on top of it.
And screwed up the mechanics.
Yep. It looks pretty, it looks beautiful, but it plays like a lesser version of Path of Exile.
And put a really generic fantasy story and really generic a lot of things in there. The whole thing felt generic. It was almost like generic the game. It seemed more generic than it did Path of Exile, and it was almost completely Path of Exile, so that means it was completely generic.
Yeah. And again, if you just copy the best examples, you're just going to end up with one of their games. You have to understand why these games don't work as much as they do work. And trust me, for people watching this right now, pick a genre, and there's probably a few dozen, if not a few hundred examples of failed examples of it out there.
Yeah, and while what Josh says sounds favorable about, hey, if you just make their game, you'll end up with their game, may sound favorable. It's not, because what it's going to mean is that you got their game kind of thing. But the fact is nobody's going to buy it because they already own it. I mean, you know, if you already owned Mario 1, well, that's probably a bad example.
Mm-hmm.
If you already own Diablo 1 on the PC, would you buy Diablo 1 again? That was completely unchanged. You know, it wasn't ported, it wasn't, you know, graphically enhanced, it wasn't anything, you know. It was just Diablo 1. Would you buy that basically from somebody in a back alley, from their trench coat? Yeah, would you buy the fake Diablo? Would you buy the Chinese knockoff Diablo 1 that is exactly Diablo 1 but just slightly different in
Diablo, but it's spelled Deaplo.
Yeah, there you go. Diablo. Or maybe it's Derplo. Derpo. It's Derpo.
Is Ministry to Rat's Tail-esque? I don't know. I would say like tower defense logistics.
Yeah, I mean it's like the same as Factorio kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's more on the tower defense side than Factorio is. Factorio's harder on the logistics side, and Ministry's harder on the tower defense side. But they're both tower defense logistics kind of thing.
And when you're trying to look at these genres, like we said, you want to look at the good, you want to look at the bad. And I've been saying this a lot more in my design posts, that the bad, I think, is more important than the good.
Oh, absolutely.
What was that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because everybody knows Mario. Everyone knows Hollow Knight. They know Castlevania. They know Metroidvania. They know platformers with a platform gas. But when you look at stuff that annoys you, when you play a game and something pisses you off when you're playing, if something is rubbing you the wrong way, make a note of that. Because if it is bothering you, the person who's designing a game, you know this is annoying people who are playing this game. Even if they don't outright come out and say it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is why there's a reason why people know of Slay the Spire, Monster Train, more than they do of Dream Quest, or, unfortunately, sadly, Hand of Fate. Because those developers looked at those previous examples and said, hey, this stuff didn't really work, or this annoyed me. Let's not do that in our game.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to... And see, a lot of these people who just look at the top genres kind of thing, I mean, like, they may not have that annoying thing in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is you don't see that it doesn't have it in there.
Mm-hmm.
So you just put it in there anyway.
Because you didn't know that was such a thing that could happen.
Yeah. It may seem like a really great idea. And it, may seem like that on the first, from a distance kind of thing before you get into the game. And a lot of times you see these developers that get things in the game, and then they won't touch it after that kind of thing. It's like, that's already in the game. That's done. Let's move on to the next thing. And, that is absolutely the wrong way to game dev in general, because the absolutely key, the most important thing, I think, in all of game dev is iteration.
Oh, yes.
Because,
especially, again, if your game's in early access and you are building everything as you're going along.
mm-hmm.
Just because something worked in, version 0.75 of your game, 8 months ago, doesn't mean it could still fit in this version. And, again, going back to, unfortunately, Clockwork Empires, they ran into that problem, sadly, month by month of developing that game. Like, I remember reading those patch notes. Patch 36, we added X, Y, and Z. Patch notes 47, we removed X and Z. Patch notes 48, we added an A, altered Y. Patch notes 49, we removed Y and we added in D. And
I think that shows that they didn't have a really good designer on their team. Because it seemed like they weren't designing the game, they were just programming things in and seeing if they worked, and then when they didn't, they took it out or tweaked it kind of thing. Rather than having a real designer on the thing that was like, could look at it while they're designing it, and it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure these mechanics aren't going to work. Not like this. Let's change it up and let's do this. Let's shift this. And basically, the difference is basically where, programming and putting it in is basically taking a ball of paint and throwing it at the wall, and hopefully a good image is going to come out of that. Where a designer is going to be like, yeah, let's put some blue over here in this corner, let's put some purple right here, some yellow down here, kind of thing, and you get like a concept image kind of thing. It's not like a fully polished image, but it is a solid concept image that you can go from there, rather than just just throwing paint at the wall.
Yeah. And to Rat's Tail's point, like basically they never, or it took them 3 years to start to figure out what their core gameplay loop was going to be. They had the concept, 3D Dwarf Forger. That's great. That's not a game that's not a core gameplay loop. That's like saying, I'm going to make my game design is going to be, I don't know, first-person shooter. Okay, that's a genre. That's not what that's not how you're building those mechanics up.
Yeah, I've ran into situations of things like that on Discord. Like there's, I won't mention the Discord, but there's several Discords I'm in, and several of them have like a place where you can post game ideas, kind of thing. And somebody will come in there, and will and this happens a lot, kind of thing. Somebody will come in there and they will say, "I've got a great idea for a game. It's a first-person shooter about Hitler."
Okay.
It's like,
what else?
And what else? That's the game idea. It's like, no, that's not a game idea. That is a subject and a genre.
Yeah, like here would be an example for me. Like, I have an idea for a game that's a survival horror game. Now, if I just leave it like that, that's not an idea. That doesn't describe anything of it. Mm-hmm. In my design doc I wrote, I described it as a horror game with procedurally generated areas with randomized events that can screw the player around. And I could go into more detail about the mechanics and the systems. But you can get a glimpse of what that idea is. If you just say, I will make a first-person shooter about monkeys throwing bananas at each other. Okay. Well, what are you doing in that game?
Yeah, the thing is that wouldn't be a first-person shooter. That would be a first monkey shooter.
There we go. And that was the problem with Clockwork Empires. And I hate to keep harping on them, but they're sadly like the best example of how this can go horribly wrong. And it took them at least 4 years before 4 years in early access to start to have a framework for what the game was going to be. And guess what happened? When they got that idea, they ran out all the money that they earned, and the company closed up a month after they started to figure things out.
Yeah, and there was a GDC talk or something I've seen about one thing, and basically they said that, and I would agree with them, is that you need your game to be, you need your core gameplay loop or your core game basically have the direction for it within probably the first 6 months or less than 6 months. 6 months is if you're to the 6 month point, you've either been very unlucky or it's a bad game. You should scrap it. If you go beyond 6 months, you should definitely absolutely scrap it and move on to something else. Because if you cannot make something fun in that short amount, in that time, it should be fun under that time. You should have something fun in less than a month. You should have, in theory, something fun in less than a week. But there's many developers that have the saying, fail fast and fail often. And you want to, and the reason why they say that is not because they want you to fail or because they want you to fail a lot. What they're saying is if something's not fun, instead of continuously trying to, fool with it kind of thing, and 6 months later, 3 years later, you still don't have something fun out of it yet. You just wasted your entire life, basically.
And
what you need something fun, right? Really fast. And once you have something fun, then build upon it. But get something fun fast. And if it's not fun fast, dump it. Which a lot of that can be avoided if you have a good designer on your team who can basically come up with something fun on paper kind of thing in their spare time, just thinking about stuff, and then pitches it as a game for you guys, for the studio to work on, and then the studio's like, okay, we'll give this game a shot. They do it. You've already got the concept out there. You've already got basically a concept art game, and you've already been able to image it and play it in your head. It's probably already solid enough that you've already got something fun right there, day one of whenever you get it actually working, kind of thing.
And also, as a quick time check, I do need to get going like the next 10 or so minutes. But yeah, exactly. That if you can't figure out why somebody should play your game or why it's fun to play your game in a short period of time, chasing that idea for months or years is going to most likely end in failure. Again, this was the whole Anthem debacle. That BioWare spent, 3 years trying to figure out what the game was going to be. I think another year or two revamping that idea. And then another year or two when somebody came on to try and fix it. And, you can't do it like that. Or you can do it like that, but it's going to lead to failure. And to Ford and Rat's comments about ideas and the quality of them, I do think there is quality. I do think ideas are important, but like we've said many times over, implementation is king when it comes to game development. If you're not the one who can program and code your game, you need somebody who can do that. Yeah. And sadly, at the end of the day, you can have the best damn idea, but unless you can take it from here and put it onto a computer, nobody's going to give a damn about it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people say ideas are worth nothing and execution is king. And while I would agree with them to a very large point, I think they have it phrased wrong. It's I think what it would be, actually, is ideas are not worth nothing, but ideas are worth no monetary value. And execution is king. Because, I talk to fans that play my game, play test it, and everything else, and the ideas they have are quite valuable. They're not worth any money, but they're valuable because they help me. And helping me is valuable to me, so it is a value, but it's not worth paying anybody for, because fact is there's tons of people that do that. It's like, would you pay people to tell, do you enjoy people saying hello to you, excluding the introverts out there? But let's just assume that you're not an introvert. If you are an introvert, you would enjoy people saying hello to you. Now, would you pay people to come up to you and say hello to you? Would that? No, it's not worth any money, but it is something that is a benefit. It is beneficial. It is worth something, but it's not worth a monetary value, and that's where I see ideas at. Ideas are the hello of game development.
And again, being able to understand design does have value. It's going to put you ahead of the game compared to other developers who don't. Like we said earlier, that if you walk into a genre and you have no design sensibilities or mechanical understanding, then you are basically trying to, I don't know, you're trying to build a car or build a house, and all the instructions are in another language that you don't know.
Or maybe you're
But
trying to build a house and you've never picked up a single piece of
never pick up a
wood.
hammer or nails, you don't even know what they are.
Yeah, you don't even know how a hammer works. You know it's supposed to hit things, but that's all you know. You know, you've never used one before.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you, when you pick up that hammer and you start using it without any experience, guess what? The you're going to have some digits that are swelling because you missed the nail with the hammer and you hit your fingers.
And this is why just about every developer says this point. When they're doing something brand new after the project is done, they will say, if I took what I know now and make this game, I could do it in half to three quarters less of the time. Because I now have that skill understanding. And again, this is why you want to fail. If you're experimenting, you want to fail fast and you want to fail small. You don't want to chase an experimental idea for 10 years of your life.
No, no.
There is no way that is going to turn out well. And to Rat's comment about QA being undervalued, yes. No other point about that. That's just yes right there. But I do have to start to wrap things up for tonight. So, Sharp, do you have any final thoughts or any topics regarding this to end on?
Let me think. We touched on one thing that we didn't go much depth in, and that's going from from like the from one genre to another kind of thing. Like we talked about this in another cast about how basically you have your thinking type of games, which is like your RPGs, your tactical games, your strategy games, games that are built around thinking. And then you have the reaction-based games that, like your first-person shooters, your platformers or plateformers that include platform gas, or, and many other examples kind of thing. And then you have, genres that are kind of on that line crossing them. Some beat 'em ups are on that line, some rogues, and many different rogues are on that line. There are even RPGs on that line, like action RPGs and stuff like that. But basically, you need to, I think you need to kind of stick to a area within there, because like the strategy is the thinking part is a big area, the action part is a big area. It's like like those are two different poles kind of thing that meet in the middle kind of thing. There's one of those like buoy lines there in the middle kind of thing. That basically what I'm saying is you need to pick a place to jump into kind of thing, and you'll make a big splash and everything in the radius of that splash is probably where you should stick to kind of thing.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, that if you are combining genre, then you're going to have to spend even more time analyzing them, because you need to figure out what works and doesn't work individually. Then you have to figure out what works and doesn't work when you combine them. Because, again, everyone has that dream of the first-person shooter, deck-building, visual novel, open-world, space sim, puzzle, platform. But it's going to be very hard to make that.
And to Rats, it's not two big genres. It's two big categories that you shift the genres into. Mm-hmm. And, of course, genres can be in, as a spectrum within that area kind of thing. Like, some roguelikes are action roguelikes. Some of them are turn-based. The turn-based side would be more on the thinking side. The action ones would be more on the action side kind of thing. And, they kind of, right there on the line kind of thing. Where, like, you got tactical RPGs, and that's pretty hard in the thinking side, generally. And you have like RPGs, and that's generally pretty hard on real RPGs, not the American RPGs. Also known as JRPGs for people who don't know genres. Those are pretty heavily on the thinking side. Where the American RPGs, stuff like Skyrim and such like that, or sandbox games, those would be more on the line kind of thing. Or like action RPGs, like
Diablo,
well, I would consider Diablo more of its own genre. I would be more like a Star Ocean kind of thing. Star Ocean is like a RPG that has a action based combat system. But like all the stats and everything are they're just like a normal RPG kind of thing. Where Diablo is also kind of in the same category as the action RPGs because they're so similar in so many ways, but then they're so different too. And I would say that's almost like the Diablo genre, a Diablo-like kind of thing. But that one again is right there, kind of on the line. And but like when they're on the line kind of thing, that doesn't mean they don't radiate beside there. Again, when you jump in a pool, you're not just moving that one spot of water where your body hits. You're moving, waves radiate quite a distance from that.
Yep.
Can go almost halfway across the pool kind of thing. So when I'm saying you jump into it, I'm talking about you pick your point where you're jumping in, and probably the best point would be to stay within that radius that you create by jumping in. And card games and RPGs have quite a long history together. Like there's so many card RPGs out there that have card game mini games inside of them because they tie so well together, kind of thing. So there's tactical RPGs have like a real good combo with RPGs, because they're kind of the same thing, just with tactical based things. And I meant like card games synergize with roguelikes, roguelikes synergize with first person shooters, there's many things that synergize with everything. It's like a spider web kind of thing. You can go from any game to any game and see, you could play the 7 degrees of game dev or whatever, or game dev bacon,
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, like that. How many games like we've gotten so good being able to look at where those inspirations come from,
mm-hmm.
And again, they come from playing and understanding these genres. And if you don't do that, and you expect kind of your prestige or your knowledge of one genre just kind of like give you an automatic win in another genre, it's not going to work out that way.
Yeah. But I would say stay within a certain radius of that area. And the thing is that's normally pretty easy to do, because if you make something you like, then you probably like the things around it, which means that you're probably going to want to make the things around it in that radius. So, like, your natural instinct will be to basically do exactly what I'm saying. Probably, anyway. Unless you just like pretty much every kind of game, and then you might have a little bit of problems. I'm going to make an RPG. Now I'm going to make a, first-person shooter. Now I'm going to make a, visual novel. Now I'm going to make an idle game. Now I'm going to make, a horror game. If you're a big fan of everything, ignore that part. But if you find that you have a core interest in around the area, then that's probably where you should stay, because as a game developer, you want to make games that you like, and you want to make games that your fans are going to like. You don't want to build a fan base every time you build a game. You want to build a fan base and then build that fan base bigger, and you want to iterate on your fan base rather than destroy your fan base and build another one. Because the thing is if you make a RPG kind of thing and everybody loves it, and then you make a first person shooter after that, you know what? Yeah. You're going to get a lot of hate from your fan base, and a lot of them are going to be utterly pissed at you, and you're going to be bad shape.
This would be like if New Blood, the developers of the publisher of Dusk and all that, decide one day to switch to Unreal Engine for their next game instead of making like the pixel old school FPS graphics.
I mean, they might still do pixel old school graphics in Unreal.
There we go. But with that, I am at time for our chat. I think this was a really great one. And again, it's a topic that a lot of people don't necessarily think about.
I think it was a really good one, too.
So, with that said, everyone, we are going to wrap things up for this week's show. I'd like to thank everybody watching live or recorded. We'll be back next Sunday around 4:30 EDT for our next stream. As always, if you want to follow me, I am on Twitter at GWBicer. You'll find links to our Discord and Patreon linked down below.
Yep, and you can find me at Nexus Games INC1, and again, join the Discord. Links in the description. And I'm planning on having some Discord events coming soon, and that should be quite fun. And plus, now I'm doing pretty regular streaming, and you can get updates for that.
All right.
As well as sub to both of our YouTube channels if you haven't already. And that would put the bell on.
All right, everyone. That is going to do it. So I'll be back later tonight for our regular game streaming and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where is MDR and Science of Games. Until next time, take care.
See ya.
All right. Yeah. Then I will. So we'll